bank deposits, anything like that. I mean, if y'all want to cancel the policy outright, we can do that.
No, probably not, because we are looking into getting another car. We just haven't gotten it yet. So.
Yeah, so basically what that does is it changes it to a named non-owner policy. So instead of canceling it outright, it still has liability coverage, but it's just different.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll sign it.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey, Meg.
Hey.
How's little man?
Sleeping.
Hallelujah.
Something he didn't do last night.
He records on, or he does a display on a separate computer. You hopping on over there? We got one straggler here. All right. Okay, well, I mean, it was juicy insurance tidbits like you just heard is why we're having Jess speak again. Welcome back, Jess. How's it going?
Do you want me to talk here?
Oh, go for it.
I'm not sure what's going on.
I think we'll get a couple more people scooting in, but we're recording and we'll post this to our Facebook page afterward. But yeah, take it away.
Okay, good deal. So I believe they wanted me to talk about catastrophic ground coverage collapse, and and sinkhole coverage, kind of the differentiation between the two of them. That is one of the big things that we're hearing about right now. Well, I mean, not really. So it's kind of quelled a little bit. The main difference is really it's pretty minute, really. There's some policy language that reads basically the way the policy language reads is there's the difference between the two is one is the gradual settling of the ground. And the other one is the abrupt settling of the ground. So catastrophic ground coverage collapse is the abrupt settling of the ground. So that's hole opens up, house falls in a hole, the stuff you see on the news, that is catastrophic ground coverage collapse. Quote unquote sinkhole loss coverage is the gradual settling of the ground. So, you know, the stair step cracks in the bricks, you've got maybe some sloping happening. Sorry, let me decline that phone call there. But that's basically what the main difference is the two of those. When most people are concerned with quote unquote sinkhole loss coverage, that's more what they're referring to. They're referring to the catastrophic ground coverage collapse. So, you know what I see on the news that happened in Tampa where the whole house got swallowed and somebody never got found because they're in the bottom of a hole, that is catastrophic ground coverage collapse. Whereas, you know, if it's a persistent problem that happens over time, that's more the sinkhole loss coverage. The main reason we had the big issue with that is there's a lot of clay, and particularly the shrink swell clay. So the clay, whenever we get a lot of rain like we have been lately, that clay will swell, and then it'll dry out over the winter when we're not having much rain, and so it contracts, and that constant swelling and contraction will make cracks in houses and make houses settle kind of weird. And it's a problem that really should be addressed prior to construction. And so what it ends up doing is there was some language that were in the policies that basically attorneys took literally and took it to the court, and basically they were saying, you know, well, there's no way to 100% say that there's not a sinkhole under this house because, you know, we live in Florida, we live on an aquifer. It's like a sponge under us. So there's inevitably a hole somewhere down there. It just doesn't matter how much rock you have to go through. So they can never really 100% say it's not a sinkhole. You know, 99% sure it's due to all the clay under the house, but it could be a sinkhole, I guess, there's a 0.5% chance. Well, in the court of law, that would essentially push them over. So that's the main difference between the two of them. One thing that I really want to talk, especially to the agents about, is the roof situation going on in Florida right now. We're seeing tightening from pretty much all the insurance companies right now with regards to roofs, especially shingled roofs, especially the 3-tab shingled roof. So not architectural. Pretty much you're going to have a really tough time getting insurance on a house if the roof's over 15 years old. I know that sucks because I run into it constantly. There are plenty of other companies that will do them over 15 years old. The only issue is that the roofs that are over 15 years old are having to go to substandard or E&S companies of some sort. And so, you know, those are a lot more expensive than what our preferred market carriers are. So, you know, really be mindful about the roofs on the house. Although the roofs may look good, you know, hey, an inspector said that this roof has 10 years left on it. None of that flies anymore. The roof has to be replaced within the last 15 years. So, I mean, that's the big thing that I'm seeing that's worrisome, especially for, you know, our real estate partners, is that, you know, the roofs are being a big issue. 4 points. I can tell you that if you are dealing with a house over 30 years old, if you're having the house inspected, go ahead and get a 4 point. 4 points are going to be needed for any home over 30 years old. Pretty much all the companies are doing this now. We used to be able to skate with some of the companies that weren't really asking for them, or they, you know, it wasn't in their filed guidelines to do it as long as we were being honest in the apps. But pretty much all of them now are requesting 4 points on homes over 30 years old. Wind mits, again, anything prior to 2002 or anything that has had a roof replaced, you're going to want wind mitigation inspections, because those are proving to be exponential discounts now. A lot of the companies are going to some new rating models. Rating models being that roof age is going to be a heavy factor on premium. So the older the roofs, the more expensive it is. They're also leaning a lot towards credit, which isn't the best thing from my experience, but credit is becoming a huge factor with home insurance as well. So roof age and credit are going to be two of the big things moving forward. But again, I can't stress enough, the 15-year-old shingle roofs, the roof has to be replaced within the last 15 years, or you're just, the insurance is going to be expensive. Other than that, I guess I'll take some questions if anybody has any questions for me.
Just to clarify, you said you're not having that on architectural shingled roofs?
No. Yeah, it's pretty much all the roofs that we're having, or all the shingle roofs that we're having that 15-year rule. We can sometimes get exceptions for metal roofs, but if it is any sort of shingle, I don't care, architectural, 3-tab, whatever, has to be replaced within the last 15 years. The reason I differentiate the two is some of the companies say that they won't go over 12 years on 3-tab shingle. So the 3-tab it differs company to company. Architectural shingles have to be replaced last 15 years. Trust me, guys, I know they're sold as 30-year roofs. I know they're advertised as 30-year roofs. I know all that. All I'm telling you is what the insurance companies are doing to us right now. They are cracking down on roofs. So.
Jesse,
Yes, ma'am.
what happens if you have a 30-year roof and you do an inspection and the inspector clears it?
The insurance companies aren't going to care. They're so you're saying like it's a 30-year architectural shingle, maybe 20 years old, and the inspector says, hey, the roof's good to go, has another 5-10 years left on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to care. It's filed guidelines now, so the state's approved all these guidelines. They're going to require the roof be replaced within the last 15 years. Now, again, you can get coverage for those houses. I'm not saying you can't get coverage for it. I'm just saying that the coverage will be expensive if it's an older roof. And I'll help you. I'll help you through that, because I know that there are some companies out there that are taking roofs up to 20 years old. And I communicate that with my clients. So, you know, if I get a phone call, somebody's got an 18-year-old roof, I may give them a couple quotes, but I'm going to tell them, you know, hey, you need to check with X, Y, and Z insurance company, because I think that they're going to have a better rate. They may be able to help you out, you know, with a cheaper rate, because, you know, we just, I hate writing these policies where there's actual cash value on the roof. And that's essentially what they're doing to the roofs that are over 15 years old. They're making us write them on a different policy form, which is a more named peril policy instead of a broad peril policy. Just basically means that your standard homeowner's insurance policy, everything is covered unless it's specifically excluded in the policy. Whereas on the named peril policies, it just says, these are the things that are covered. Unless we say it's covered, it's excluded. So it just leaves a lot more coverage out of the policy when you have to do that. And whenever you put it on that form, they give us the opportunity to say that we'll do it actual cash value, which basically just means that they give you a depreciated amount for the value of the roof, which isn't really what anybody wants. What are y'all seeing that are holding y'all up on insurance, or are y'all seeing anything out there that you feel like I may be able to help you with, or walk you through, or give you some reasoning why?
The biggest issue is the roofs.
Yeah. I mean, the roofs are.
How much do you think is a good roundabout quote for average homeowners insurance? Because people ask me that a lot. How much is my insurance going to be?
Yeah, it depends on location. Location is probably the biggest thing. The more rural properties, you're probably up in the, you know, I'll just talk hypothetically here. You know, let's say for lack of a better term, we'll just use like a 2005 house. A 2005 house in town, you know, little less than 1,000 maybe. Could be a lot cheaper than that if it's a newer home. Out in the sticks, or, you know, what we would consider a PC-10, which is over 5 miles from a fire station and over 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant. You know, those are probably going to be more in the 12 to 1,500 range.
What about coast?
Coastal's a whole different animal. And that's another thing too, that the coastal stuff is really, the insurance companies are tightening down on what they call their wind pool risks, which are the coastal risks. So it's really just finding the company that'll do it. I can't even really quote you at what an average cost would be.
What is the magic age of the house to not have to have a wind mitt or a 4-point?
So two different answers there. So 2002 and older, they need a wind mitt. Like, it's a necessity to get a wind mitt if it's 2002 or older. For 4-point inspections, 30 years. So if the house is 30 years old or older, get a 4-point.
And a wind mitt is just for the roof, right?
So the wind mitt looks at the roof, but it also looks at some of the structural features of the roof. So the inspector actually has to get into the attic. They're going to look for stuff like hurricane clips. They're going to look for stuff like how the decking, so the plywood is actually nailed down to the rafters. All those are discounts that'll affect the homeowner's insurance.
Okay. So
And then of course, your coastal risk will have, the hurricane shutters and that sort of stuff that'll be inspected too.
Okay.
FYI, people who have foam insulation makes it very difficult to get an accurate wind mitt.
Yes, very, very difficult.
Foam installation?
Foam.
Yeah, like closed cell, the isonine insulation, the spray and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I haven't run into that too much.
I think we'll probably start seeing that going forward a lot more. A lot of the custom homes these days are being built with isonine insulation.
I have a personal
they're
question.
essentially building Yeti coolers these days with that stuff sprayed in them like that.
Oh, they work good. So I live in an older house, probably 1960 something, and I live kind of off of the 16th Avenue, 8th Avenue area. And I've noticed a lot of houses have been replumbed, repiped, but not a lot of houses have been repiped going out from the house. And I think because I saw my neighbors and the pipes are just kind of disintegrating. And I think that that's going to be a big problem here in the next 10 years, that these houses are going to have these old cast iron pipes are going to bust through and ruin the floor. What happens during that? Is that covered by your homeowner's insurance?
So you mean the wastewater pipes aren't being redone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Going away from the house.
Wastewater, the thing with wastewater is they're not pressurized. So all your wastewater is gravity. It's not pressurized like the supply side. So if you do have cracks and you do have stuff like that, you don't really see the slab leaks as bad.
Okay.
Or you don't really run into the slab leaks and the flooring damage and stuff like that because it's not pressurized. The pressure on the supply side is what actually causes the damage, by forcing it into that concrete, which, then turns and pops the floors up and all that other stuff.
But if you do get a pipe that bursts underneath your house, and let's say you just put down new wood floors, what happens? Like, is that covered? Or because I was talking to the plumbers and they're like, yeah, we just come in there and we rip up the entire new floor. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's what they do. So it's actually pretty funny how they cover that. The actual repair of the pipe, so actually fixing the pipe, taking a piece out and putting a new piece in, is not covered. That's like $50 of the whole job. The jackhammering out the concrete, the tearing up the floor, the damage to the floor, all that sort of stuff is covered under the policy.
Is your whole house covered, or just that area?
Yeah.
Like, do they just rip
so
out?
anything damaged. So anything damaged would be covered. Now I have to kind of clarify that. and say it really depends on your declaration pages. So it depends on how the policy's written. A lot of these houses that have galvanized steel pipes in them, and even like some of the older houses, you have to really be careful and look at the policies, because there's a lot of policies that'll exclude water damage coverage, or have very limited water damage coverage. So it'll have like $10,000 of water damage coverage. So, you know, a slab leak where you have to replace a lot of wood flooring can very easily hit that $10,000 mark, and then you're on the hook for everything else. So you really have to pay attention to the policies for those.
Okay. Thanks.
So review your policy with your agent. Sorry, I keep getting phone calls, guys. I don't mean for my video to cut out here. Any other questions?
Yes, hold on, Jess.
Yeah, I do. I have a property that's on a little bit less than 5 acres.
Mhm.
And it has an outbuilding that's a good ways away from the home. Can that be insured?
Yep, absolutely. So different insurance companies do this differently. If you look at the ISO rules, which ISOs are basically like industry standard forms for all insurance companies, there's a 150-foot rule on most ISO policies. So every homeowner's insurance policy will have other structures coverage, but that other structures coverage only goes 150 feet from the house. If it's a good ways away, like what you're talking about, typically what we would do is we would endorse specifically that that building. So we would say, you know, whether it's a detached garage, a shop, you know, horse stables, whatever it may be, we will actually specifically endorse that building for a replacement cost or whatever an agreed value would be.
I sent you a question in the chat, Jess.
Okay.
And it's regarding galvanized versus not versus all the different types.
Okay. Sorry, I for some reason the chat's not showing anything for me.
That's fine. It was it's basically just some of you went over like the roof dates and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically the different types of piping, you know, that could cause issues like galvanized and what some of the criteria are that we should be aware of.
Okay. Yeah, so plumbing in the homes, polybutylene pipes and galvanized steel pipes. Those two types are absolute no-goes. I say no-goes. We can get coverage for the houses with polybutylene. We can get coverage for the houses with galvanized steel, but they are going to exclude water damage coverage. So there will be no water damage coverage on those policies. It's not the ideal thing. Some people are comfortable with it if they're getting a good enough deal in the house, and then they can replumb it whenever they want to. But yeah, galvanized and polybutylene are the two big no's. We don't really have a whole lot of polybutylene in the area. There's like Millhopper Station out here in Northwest Gainesville. There's a lot of polybutylene out there. I don't know if it was just that like the early 90s when they were using it and they were replumbing some houses with it, but they use it a lot on those houses out there. We ran into it a bunch out there. We run into the galvanized steel all the time. Houses built 60s, 70s, you have to be on the lookout for that galvanized steel pipes. But again, it's not going to hinder them from getting insurance. It's just going to hinder them from getting water damage coverage.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think Kai, who strangely looks like Kristen in his picture, has a question.
No, I don't have any other questions. Any other things you want to round it out with, Kristen?
No, but I'll thank you, Jess. I'm not on because we're all in the office, but here's the actual real Kristen. Come on, and your questions. And know that you can always contact Jess if you have any other insurance questions that come up for any of the homes. And also, he's a great insurance agent for your own and for your buyers that are out there. So we'll leave it with that. Does Maury, I think you're on here. Do you have anything that you want to add? Oh, sorry. Jess, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just say, I was going to give you all my cell phone number. So if y'all ever want to just like text me a question, I'm happy to answer it anytime. It's 352-745-6774. And y'all feel free to contact me there anytime.
And again, that's just if you have any questions. You don't have to actually be using him. Jess is really good at answering questions for our Revel agents, regardless of if you've used him or not. So don't forget that, we do have these great people in our circle that will help you regardless. So thank you, Jess. Thank you everyone for coming on, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any of them. So.
Yeah, right.